The wine glass shatters. Not from impact, from pressure. Rhett Calderon's grip tightens around crystal stem until fracture lines spiderweb across Bordeaux-stained clarity, and the base gives way with a sound like ice cracking over deep water. Red pools across white linen. No one at the table moves. The private dining room in Montclair holds its breath. Chandeliers casting amber halos over men whose tailored shoulders carry the weight of territories divided by handshakes and bloodlines. Outside, snow falls in sheets that erase the parking lot, the highway, the rational world. Rhett stands. 6'3", Tom Ford suit cut sharp enough to draw blood. Skin the color of burnished mahogany, jaw locked tight as a vault. His watch, platinum, not gold, never gold, catches light as he turns toward the terrace doors someone left open. Cold air pours into the room like an accusation. "Boss?" The voice comes from his left. Dante, second in command, hand already moving toward the concealed carry at his hip. Rhett raises one finger. Silence drops like a guillotine. "Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is." He walks, each step deliberate, calculated. The kind of movement that makes grown men reconsider their life insurance policies. Behind him, forks pause mid-air. Conversations die. The room has been cleared of waitstaff for the past hour because this dinner was never about food. It was about territory, about respect, about maintaining the fiction that civilized men in expensive clothes can govern chaos through etiquette and implication. The terrace doors frame winter like a painting. Snow accumulates on wrought iron furniture, on stone balustrades, on the figure collapsed against the railing. A man, barefoot, shaking so hard his bones might splinter. Rhett stops in the doorway. His breath mists white. The temperature differential hits him like a slap. 70 degrees inside, 23 outside, the kind of cold that kills slowly and then all at once. The man's coat hangs open, designer, ruined. Beneath it, the swelling is unmistakable. Round, firm, impossible to ignore. Pregnant. The word doesn't form in Rhett's mind so much as detonate. Male omega. Heavily pregnant. Alone in a snowstorm outside a restaurant owned by the Montclair faction, which means he either stumbled here by accident or desperation. The Omega's lips have gone past blue into gray. His hair, silver white, whether from genetics or stress, plasters against a face too gaunt for someone carrying life. When he lifts his eyes, they're pale amber shot through with panic. Recognition flares, not of identity, of circumstance. This man is running. And whatever he's running from is close enough to make freezing to death seem preferable. Rhett moves before thought catches up. Shrugs out of his jacket mid-stride, the motion smooth as violence. Wraps $2,000 fabric around trembling shoulders and lifts the Omega into his arms in one motion. The man weighs nothing. Less than nothing. Rhett has carried corpses with more substance. The pregnant belly presses against his chest, hard and warm despite the hypothermic limbs, and something in that contrast makes his throat close. "Clear the room." His voice cuts through shock, through confusion, through the carefully constructed dinner meeting now collapsing into chaos. Now. Behind him, Dante starts barking orders. Chairs scrape. Men in Brooks Brothers and Armani scramble for exits like roaches when the lights flip on. Someone knocks over a wine bottle. Someone else swears in Russian. Rhett doesn't turn, doesn't check. The Omega in his arms has started to convulse, small tremors that ripple through starved muscle, and Rhett's mind is already calculating. Distance to nearest hospital. 17 minutes in good weather. 40 in this storm. Unacceptable. He carries the Omega inside. Lays him on the leather booth seat farthest from the terrace. Calls for blankets, hot water, his personal physician who lives 3 blocks away and knows better than to ask questions. The Omega's eyes flutter. Consciousness, fraying. His lips move but no sound emerges. Rhett leans close enough to catch the whisper. "Don't tell them where." Then nothing. The room empties in 90 seconds. Only Rhett remains, crouched beside a stranger whose presence has just rewritten every calculation for the evening and possibly the year. Snow continues to fall beyond the glass. The wine stain spreads across white linen like a Rorschach test. And somewhere in the back of Rhett's mind, a question begins to form. Who sends a pregnant Omega into a blizzard alone? And what kind of man does that make their enemy? The Calderon name has never failed. 3 generations, 0 losses. A record built on precision, restraint, and the kind of reputation that makes violence redundant. Rhett's grandfather established the rules in 1967: no women, no children, no unnecessary bloodshed. His father refined them into doctrine. By the time Rhett inherited control at 32, the organization ran like a Fortune 500 company. Territory disputes resolved through negotiation. Profits laundered through legitimate real estate. Politicians stayed bought. Police stayed blind. The ecosystem remained balanced. Power, Rhett learned early, is not about force. It's about inevitability. He stands now in the hallway outside the private dining room, phone pressed to his ear, watching Dr. Amari work through the cracked door. The physician moves with practiced efficiency. Stethoscope, blood pressure cuff, warming blankets layered like armor against hypothermia. The Omega hasn't regained consciousness. 20 minutes since Rhett carried him inside. 20 minutes of silence interrupted only by medical assessments delivered in clipped syllables. Heartbeat stable. Fetal movement detected. Core temperature 89 degrees. 89. 6 degrees below normal. The margin between survival and system failure. Dante appears at Rhett's shoulder. Shorter, stockier, with the kind of face that looks friendly until it doesn't. Building secure. Perimeter check shows no tail. No cameras caught him entering the property. Which means he came through the woods. Rhett pockets his phone. In a blizzard, barefoot, while pregnant. That level of desperation means whoever he's running from is worse than frostbite. Rhett turns, meets Dante's eyes. Pull every database. Missing persons. Omega trafficking rings. Chicago to Boston corridor. I want a name by morning. Dante nods once and disappears down the corridor, footsteps muffled by Persian runners that cost more than most cars. The hallway is all dark wood and muted lighting, designed to suggest old money rather than new violence. Rhett has always appreciated the aesthetic. Control dressed as civility. Threat packaged as hospitality. The rule has always been simple. If you can afford this dining room, you can afford consequences. But the Omega, shivering under medical-grade blankets, didn't choose this location. He stumbled into it, or fled toward it, which raises the question of awareness. Did he know whose territory this was? Did he understand that walking into a Calderon-protected establishment was either the safest or most dangerous choice available? Dr. Amari emerges, peeling off latex gloves. Late 50s, hair gray at the temples, eyes that have seen too much to be shocked by anything. He'll live. The pregnancy is 27 weeks, viable but fragile. I've started IV fluids and thermal regulation. He needs a hospital. No hospitals. Rhett's tone leaves no room for negotiation. Rhett, hospitals mean records. Records mean questions. Questions mean exposure for him and liability for us. He watches the Omega through the doorway. Even unconscious, the man's hands rest protectively over his abdomen. Instinct, biology, the kind of gesture that transcends fear. Move him to the estate. Set up a medical suite. Whatever you need, you get. Dr. Amari's jaw tightens. Professional disagreement wrestled into compliance. If complications develop, then you handle them. That's why I pay you double what Johns Hopkins offered. Rhett straightens his cuffs. The wine stain on his shirt has dried to the color of old rust. How long until he wakes? Could be minutes. Could be hours. Hypothermia affects neurological function unpredictably. Keep me updated. The doctor leaves. Rhett steps into the dining room. Approaches the booth where the Omega lies motionless beneath layers of blankets, IV line snaking from his left arm to a bag of saline hanging from a makeshift stand. Up close, details emerge. Scars on his wrists. Thin, precise, the kind left by zip ties, not accidents. Bruising along his collarbone that matches fingerprints. Cheekbones too sharp, suggesting weeks of inadequate nutrition. Someone hurt this man. Someone controlled him. And then someone decided he was disposable. Rhett has built his empire on reading people, on understanding motivation through observation. What he sees now is a story written in damage, a narrative of ownership, exploitation, and escape. The pregnancy complicates everything. Omegas don't carry to term without alpha involvement, which means somewhere in this equation is a father, a claim, a territorial dispute waiting to explode. His phone vibrates. Dante, text message. Found something. Call me. Rhett steps into the hallway, dials. Dante answers on the first ring. Missing persons report filed in Chicago 6 weeks ago. Male Omega, 26 years old, name redacted but physical description matches. Last seen in the company of Bram Cade. The name lands like a gunshot. Bram Cade. Beta, mid-level trafficker operating out of Chicago's West Side. Known for acquiring Omegas through coercion, debt traps, and outright abduction. Known for trading them like commodities. Known for brutality when they tried to leave. And now, apparently, known for hunting pregnant runaways across state lines. Cade's here? Rhett's voice drops to sub-zero. No confirmed sightings, but his crew has been making inquiries. Newark, Hoboken, Montclair, they're searching. How close? Too close. Rhett ends the call, returns to the dining room. The Omega's eyes are open now, pale amber, unfocused, struggling to track movement. Dr. Amari hovers nearby, checking vitals, murmuring reassurances that sound hollow even to trained ears. The Omega's gaze finds Rhett. Locks on. Terror floods those amber irises, so sharp and sudden that Rhett actually stops mid-step. The Omega tries to sit up. Fails. Tries again. The IV line pulls taut. Don't. Dr. Amari reaches for him. No. The word comes out raw, desperate. No, please, I can't stay. He'll find me. You're safe, Rhett says. The lie tastes like copper. No one is coming for you here. The Omega's laugh is broken glass. You don't know him. You don't know what he... His hands clutch his belly. Protective. Futile. I have to go. I have to... He tries to stand. Collapses immediately. Dr. Amari catches him before he hits the floor, eases him back onto the booth seat, but the damage is done. Panic-triggered adrenaline floods a system already compromised by hypothermia and malnutrition. The Omega's breathing turns ragged, shallow, his pulse visible in his throat. And no one had a backup. The snow doesn't stop. Rhett stands at the window of his Connecticut estate, watching white erase the landscape. 40 acres of controlled wilderness, 15 rooms, security that cost more than the building itself. The Omega arrived 2 hours ago in the back of an unmarked SUV, still unconscious, still tethered to IV lines that Dr. Amari monitored like lifelines. Now he occupies the guest suite on the second floor, 1,200 square feet of cream-colored walls, blackout curtains, and locks that only open from the inside. Safety or cage, depending on perspective. Rhett's reflection stares back at him from floor-to-ceiling glass. 41 years old. No wife, no children, no attachments beyond the organization that defines him. His father used to say attachment was liability. His grandfather went further. Attachment was death. And yet here he is, harboring a stranger whose presence violates every operational protocol he spent a decade perfecting. Behind him, the door opens without knocking. Only 3 people have that privilege. Dante enters first, followed by the twins, Malik and Tariq, 28, identical except for the scar bisecting Malik's left eyebrow. Both former Marines, both lethal in ways that don't require firearms. They arrange themselves in the study like pieces on a chessboard, waiting for Rhett to make the first move. Status, Rhett says without turning. Dante pulls up a tablet. Omega's name is Ilya Mercer, born in Brooklyn, parents deceased, no siblings, disappeared from Chicago 6 weeks ago after... He pauses. Scrolls. After attempting to file a police report against Bram Cade for unlawful confinement and coerced impregnation. The words hang in the air like smoke. Coerced impregnation. Legal terminology for rape dressed in clinical language. The report was never processed, Dante continues. Investigating officer was on Cade's payroll. Ilya vanished that same night. Cade's crew has been searching ever since. Why? Malik speaks for the first time, voice flat. Omegas are replaceable in his operation. Why chase one across 3 states? Tariq answers before Dante can. The baby. Silence. Rhett finally turns, meets Tariq's eyes. Explain. Cade's infertile, beta genetics, low sperm count, the works. Public knowledge in certain circles. Tariq leans against the bookshelf, arms crossed. If Ilya's pregnant, and Cade was controlling him, then the father is someone with enough status to make the child valuable. Rhett finishes the thought. Feels cold certainty settle in his chest. Cade's not chasing a runaway. He's chasing stolen property. An alpha heir he intended to claim or sell. Which makes Ilya a target until that baby is born. Dante sets the tablet down. And maybe after. The room processes this in silence. Outside, wind drives snow against windows reinforced to withstand small arms fire. The estate has weathered worse than blizzards. Worse than surveillance. Worse than rival factions testing boundaries. But this is different. This is a pregnant Omega carrying a child conceived in violence, pursued by a man who treats lives like currency, and Rhett has just made himself the barrier between hunter and prey. Upstairs, something crashes. All 4 men move at once. Rhett reaches the staircase first, taking steps 3 at a time. Dante and the twins close behind. The guest suite door is still locked from inside, but sound carries through reinforced wood, ragged breathing, movement, the muffled thud of something heavy hitting carpet. Ilya? Rhett's voice carries enough command to penetrate panic. I'm opening the door. Don't be afraid. He uses the master key. The lock disengages with a soft click. Pushes the door open slowly, hands visible, body language as non-threatening as a man his size can manage. The room is chaos. Blankets torn from the bed. IV stand knocked over. Saline bag leaking clear fluid across hardwood. And in the corner, pressed against the wall like a cornered animal, Ilya Mercer stares back with eyes that have stopped seeing reality. He's awake. Aware. Absolutely terrified. Stay back. His voice shakes, hands pressed flat against his swollen abdomen. I don't know who you are, but I can't be here. He'll find me. He always finds me. You're in Connecticut. Rhett keeps his tone level. Calm. The voice he uses to de-escalate situations where guns are already drawn. Bram Cade is in Chicago. You're 300 miles away from him. You don't understand. Ilya's laugh borders on hysteria. Distance doesn't matter. He has people everywhere. Police, hospitals, bus stations. I ran for 6 weeks, and he was always one step behind. His breathing accelerates. Shallow, fast. The kind that precedes hyperventilation. Rhett takes 1 step forward. Just 1. How far along are you? The question breaks through panic. Ilya blinks. What? The pregnancy. How many weeks? 27. Automatic response, then suspicion. Why? Because at 27 weeks, stress can trigger premature labor. And if you collapse again, this time it might not be hypothermia that kills you. It might be your own fear. Ilya flinches like he's been struck. His hands tighten protectively over his belly, and for a moment, something shifts in his expression. Not trust, but recognition. The acknowledgement that Rhett is right. I don't know you, Ilya whispers. I don't know why you helped me. But men like you don't help people like me without wanting something. You're right. Rhett doesn't sugarcoat it. I don't help without reason, but my reason isn't what you think. Then what is it? You walked into my territory, under my protection, whether you knew it or not. And I don't hand over people who ask for shelter, even accidentally. Ilya studies him, searching for deception, for the angle, for the moment this benevolence reveals its true cost. He'll come for me. Let him. The words are iron, unyielding. Ilya's breath catches. Rhett watches the calculation happen in real time, weighing captivity against exposure, safety against autonomy, the devil he knows against the one he doesn't. Then Ilya's legs give out. Rhett moves. catches him before he hits the floor, one arm beneath his shoulders, the other supporting his back. The Omega weighs nothing, all bone and desperation, and the swollen curve of new life. Up close, Rhett can see the toll these weeks have taken. Dark circles, cracked lips, the tremor that has nothing to do with cold and everything to do with sustained trauma. "I've got you," Rhett says quietly. "I've got you." Ilya doesn't fight, doesn't resist, just collapses against Rhett's chest with a sound that might be a sob or might be surrender. And something in that moment breaks open a door Rhett didn't know existed. Protection. The word surfaces unbidden. Atavistic. The kind of instinct that predates law and logic. He has spent 20 years building an empire on calculated detachment, and in 30 seconds, a stranger has dismantled the entire framework. Dr. Amari appears in the doorway, assesses the situation with practiced efficiency. "Get him back to bed. I need to check for contractions." They move as a unit, Rhett carrying Ilya, Amari clearing space, Dante hovering in the hall like a shadow. The Omega doesn't speak, doesn't look at anyone. Just stares at the ceiling as Amari presses the stethoscope to his abdomen, as monitors beep confirmation of fetal heartbeat, as the room collectively holds its breath. "No contractions," Amari finally says, "but he's dehydrated and malnourished. This pregnancy is surviving on borrowed time." "Then buy more time," Rhett says. "Whatever it takes." Amari meets his eyes. Understanding passes wordlessly. This isn't a medical directive. It's an order. The doctor nods, begins reconnecting IV lines. Rhett steps back, lets the professionals work. But his gaze stays locked on Ilya, on the visible rise and fall of labored breathing, on hands that won't stop trembling, on a body that has learned safety is temporary and trust is a luxury he can't afford. Every known solution fails for the same reason. The decision is professional suicide. Rhett knows this the way he knows his own pulse. Harboring a trafficked Omega, especially one carrying an Alpha heir, violates every unwritten rule in the underground economy. It invites retaliation, draws attention, creates liability where none existed. His advisors would call it reckless. His enemies would call it weakness. And they'd both be right. He makes the call anyway, 3 a.m. The estate is silent except for the hum of security systems and the quiet murmur of monitors in Ilya's room. Rhett sits in his study, phone in hand, staring at the contact labeled M. Reeves, Chicago liaison. Marcus Reeves. Former DEA, current information broker, the kind of man who trades in secrets and survives by knowing when to speak and when to disappear. The call connects on the second ring. Marcus doesn't bother with pleasantries. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" "I need everything on Bram Cade." Rhett's voice is stone. Operations, assets, weaknesses, people he's paying, people he's threatening. "I want his entire network mapped by sunrise." Silence. Then, "Jesus Christ, Rhett. What did you do?" "My job." "Your job is territory management and profit optimization. Not picking fights with mid-level traffickers who have nothing to lose and everything to prove." Marcus exhales audibly. Cade's volatile, vindictive. He once burned down a competitor's warehouse over a $2,000 debt. You don't poke that hornet's nest unless... He stops. Understanding crystallizes through the phone line. "You've got the Omega." "I've got a guest." A guest Cade has been tearing the eastern seaboard apart to find. A guest who's carrying merchandise Cade already sold to an Alpha in Detroit for $500,000. A guest whose existence is now the only thing standing between Cade and bankruptcy because he spent that money before delivery. Rhett's jaw tightens. He sold a child that wasn't born yet? He sold the concept of an Alpha heir. Pre-sold. Non-refundable. The buyer has a reputation for collecting bloodlines. Cade promised delivery within 8 weeks. That deadline is closing fast, and if he doesn't produce, the buyer will do worse than demand a refund. The implications spread like oil on water. Ilya isn't just running from captivity. He's running from a transaction already completed, a child already traded, a future already sold. And Rhett has just inserted himself between a desperate seller and a very dangerous buyer. Who's the buyer? Rhett asks quietly. Anton Volkov, Detroit Bratva, the kind of man who doesn't negotiate, doesn't forgive, and doesn't care about collateral damage. Get me his number. Rhett, I'll handle Cade. You handle Volkov. Set up a call. Tomorrow, noon. He ends the conversation before Marcus can argue further. Leans back in his chair. The leather creaks. Outside, the first gray light of dawn bleeds across snow-covered grounds. Somewhere upstairs, Ilya is sleeping under sedation, monitored by equipment that tracks every heartbeat, every breath, every contraction that could signal premature labor. Rhett has bought him time. Maybe 48 hours? Maybe less. But time is only valuable if it leads somewhere. The problem is simple. Keeping Ilya safe requires making him invisible. But making him invisible is impossible while Cade is hunting and Volkov is waiting for delivery. Which means Rhett needs to eliminate both threats simultaneously without triggering a war that would bury everyone involved. Chess, not violence. Strategy, not rage. He opens his laptop, pulls up financial records tied to Cade's operation. Shell companies, laundered accounts, property deeds buried under false names. The structure is sloppy, amateur. The kind of operation that survives on intimidation rather than intelligence. Within an hour, Rhett has identified 12 vulnerabilities. Within 2 hours, he's initiated freeze orders on 6 accounts. By dawn, Cade's cash flow has been reduced to a trickle. Money, Rhett learned from his grandfather, is the only language sociopaths understand fluently. The knock at his door is soft but deliberate. Malik enters without waiting for permission. He's dressed for violence. Tactical pants, black shirt, the kind of boots that don't leave prints. His face is carefully neutral. Ilya's awake, asking for you. Rhett closes the laptop. How is he? Scared, angry, confused. Dr. Amari says his vitals are stable, but his stress levels are dangerous. He needs answers. Answers I can't give him yet. Then give him something else. Malik's tone is matter of fact. Because right now, he thinks you're Cade, wearing a better suit. The assessment stings because it's accurate. Rhett has spent years cultivating control through opacity, never explaining, never justifying, never showing the mechanisms behind decisions. It works for business, for territory management, for maintaining fear disguised as respect. But Ilya doesn't respond to fear. He's lived inside it too long. Rhett climbs the stairs, approaches the guest suite. The door is open now, morning light spilling across hardwood floors. Ilya sits on the edge of the bed, IV line still attached, wearing clothes someone, probably Dante, left folded on the dresser. Gray sweatpants, white t-shirt, both several sizes too large. He looks up when Rhett enters, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. Why am I still here? Straight to the point, no preamble. Rhett respects that. Because leaving gets you killed. Staying might too. Maybe. Rhett doesn't insult him with false promises. But at least here, you have leverage. Ilya's laugh is bitter. Leverage? I'm a runaway Omega carrying a baby someone else paid for. I don't have leverage. I have a target on my back. You have me. The words land with unexpected weight. Ilya goes still. Searches Rhett's face for deception, for angle, for the inevitable betrayal that experience has taught him to expect. Why? The question is barely a whisper. Why would you risk anything for me? Rhett considers lying, considers deflection, settles on truth. Because I saw you in the snow, freezing to death, and decided that wasn't acceptable. And once I make a decision, I don't reverse it. Even if it costs you? Especially then. Ilya processes this. His hands rest on his belly. Protective, unconscious. Bram will come. And when he does, people will die. Maybe you, maybe me. Definitely this baby. His voice cracks. I've already lost everything. I can't lose him too. Him. A flicker of something soft crosses Ilya's face. I don't know for sure, but I feel like it's a boy. Like he's fighting just as hard as I am. Rhett's chest tightens. He's orchestrated hostile takeovers, negotiated ceasefires, buried enemies with paperwork and patience. But this, This raw vulnerability, this fierce maternal instinct wrapped in terror, is something outside his operational framework. He steps closer, not close enough to threaten, close enough to be honest. I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to think I'm lying, but I need you to hear it anyway. He waits until Ilya meets his eyes. I don't traffic people. I don't exploit omegas. And I sure as hell don't trade children. Those are my rules. Non-negotiable. And anyone who breaks them answers to me. Bram broke them. I know. Then what are you going to do about it? Rhett smiles. It's not a kind expression. I'm going to make him wish he'd chosen a different line of work. For the first time since they met, something shifts in Ilya's expression. Not trust. Not yet. But possibility. The faint hope that maybe, just maybe, this nightmare has an exit. I won't be owned again, Ilya says quietly. Not by you. Not by anyone. Good. Rhett means it. Because ownership isn't protection. It's just prettier chains. Ilya's breath catches. He looks away toward the window where snow continues to fall in relentless white curtains. When he speaks again, his voice is steadier. What happens now? Now you rest. Eat. Let Dr. Amari monitor the pregnancy. And I handle Bram Cade. How? By being better at this than he is. Continuing meant accepting years of visible failure. The first attempt fails within 24 hours. Rhett moves Ilya to a safe house in Newark. Nondescript townhouse, residential block, the kind of place where neighbors mind their business and cameras are decorative. 3-bedroom layout, reinforced doors, panic room in the basement. Malik and Tariq rotate shifts, 8 hours on, 8 hours off, armed and alert. Dr. Amari sets up a portable monitoring station in the master bedroom. Fetal Doppler, blood pressure cuff, medication organized by hour. Ilya cooperates with mechanical precision, answering questions without inflection, accepting help without gratitude. He's retreated somewhere internal, somewhere safe. Rhett understands. Trauma builds walls. Trust dismantles them slowly. Or not at all. 46 hours after arrival, the leak happens. It starts with a photo. Grainy. Taken through a window. Shows Ilya in profile. Pregnant belly unmistakable, standing in the kitchen of the Newark safe house. The image hits social media at 3 p.m. Anonymous account, caption reading, Omega thief hiding in New Jersey. Stolen property of Bram Cade. Reward for location confirmation. Within an hour, the post has 5,000 shares. Within 2 hours, news vans are circling the block. Rhett gets the call from Malik at 3:47 p.m. We're compromised, moving now. Where? Rhett is already in motion, grabbing keys, phone, the go bag that lives in his office closet. West, Pennsylvania safe house. ETA 90 minutes. The line goes dead. Rhett curses under his breath. Pulls up security feeds on his phone. The Newark property is chaos. Reporters on the lawn, cameras pointed at windows, neighbors emerging from houses to gawk at the spectacle. And there, barely visible through the front door's reinforced glass, Malik guides Ilya toward the garage exit, one hand on his shoulder, the other on his weapon. They make it to the SUV. Doors lock. Engine roars. The vehicle pulls out through the back alley just as the first reporter reaches the garage. But the damage is done. Ilya's location is public. His face is viral. And every opportunist between New Jersey and Chicago now knows there's a reward attached to his capture. Rhett drives west, pushes the Mercedes past legal limits, traffic laws meaningless against the ticking clock in his chest. The Pennsylvania safe house is deeper, more isolated. 40 acres of wooded property, single-access road, the kind of place where screams don't carry. It should buy them time. Should. He arrives at sunset. The property is secured. Tariq at the perimeter. Dante inside coordinating supply chains. Dr. Amari unpacking medical equipment with the efficiency of someone who's done this too many times. And in the living room, curled on a leather sofa beneath a blanket that swallows his frame, Ilya stares at nothing. Rhett approaches slowly. Sits on the opposite end of the sofa. Doesn't speak, just waits. Eventually, Ilya breaks the silence. This is my fault. No. I should have kept moving. Should have stayed invisible. Should have. His voice cracks. I put all of you at risk because I was stupid enough to think I could stop running. You were freezing to death. Rhett keeps his tone even. You made the only choice available. The choice that got your safe house burned. Ilya pulls the blanket tighter. How long until they find this one? Rhett doesn't have an answer. The leak was surgical. Precise. Which means someone inside his network is compromised. Someone with access to location data. Someone who valued Cade's reward over loyalty. Finding the traitor will take time they don't have. We'll move again if necessary, Rhett says, as many times as it takes. And what happens when you run out of safe houses? When Cade gets close enough that moving doesn't matter anymore? Ilya finally looks at him. Eyes red-rimmed. Exhausted. You can't protect me forever. Eventually, something breaks. Then we make sure it's not you. Ilya laughs, and the sound is hollow. You don't get it. I'm already broken. I've been broken since the first time Bram locked me in a room and told me I belonged to him. Since the first time he stops, swallows. Can't finish the sentence. Rhett's hands curl into fists. Controlled rage. The kind that doesn't show on his face but burns through his chest like acid. Did he force the pregnancy? Silence. Then, barely audible. Yes. The word is a grenade. Rhett's vision narrows. Every civil impulse, every calculated restraint, every rule about proportional response evaporates. He sees Cade in his mind, sees him screaming, bleeding, begging for mercy that will never come. Sees him erased from existence with the same casual efficiency he used to destroy Ilya's autonomy. I'm going to kill him. The statement is matter of fact. No heat, no theatrics, just certainty. Don't. Ilya's response is immediate. Sharp. Don't make me responsible for more death. You're not responsible, he is. It doesn't matter whose fault it is when the bodies pile up. Ilya's hands press against his belly. This baby doesn't need a legacy built on revenge. He needs a chance. A real one. Then I'll give him that. How? By starting a war, by making me the excuse for bloodshed. Rhett meets his eyes. By making sure the people who hurt you never hurt anyone else. They sit in silence. Outside, darkness thickens. Security lights flicker on, casting geometric shadows across snow-dusted pines. Somewhere in the house, Dr. Amari's equipment beeps steady confirmation of fetal heartbeat. 143 beats per minute. Strong, resilient, just like the Omega carrying him. Rhett's phone vibrates. Text from Marcus. Volkov wants a meeting. Says he's willing to negotiate. I don't trust it. Rhett types back. Set it up. Tomorrow, neutral ground. The response is immediate. You're insane. Maybe. Probably. But sanity has never been his strong suit. I need to tell you something, Rhett says quietly, and you're not going to like it. Ilya tenses. What? The man Cade sold your baby to, Anton Volkov, wants to meet. He's offering negotiation. Negotiation. Ilya's voice climbs an octave. He bought a child like it was a car. What's there to negotiate? His money back. Or alternative compensation. Something that doesn't involve taking a newborn from his mother. Ilya stares at him. You actually believe that? You think a man who buys children is going to suddenly develop a conscience? No, but I think he's a businessman. And businessmen respond to better offers. What offer could possibly compete with an alpha heir? Rhett leans forward, elbows on knees. That's what I need to figure out. But I can't do it without your permission. Because this meeting, if it goes wrong, it exposes you. Confirms your location. Gives Volkov leverage he doesn't have right now. And if it goes right, then maybe we solve two problems at once. Cade loses his buyer. Volkov loses his investment. And you get to keep your son. Ilya processes this. Fear wars with hope. Self-preservation battles maternal instinct. When he finally speaks, his voice is steady. Do it. But if this backfires, if Volkov comes for him, I want you to promise me something. Anything. Promise you'll make sure he never knows where he came from. Never knows he was sold before he was born. Tears slip down Ilya's cheeks. Promise he gets to be just a kid, not merchandise. Rhett's throat closes. He nods once. I promise. Outside, wind howls through the trees. Inside, hope collapses. The second relocation happens at 3 a.m. No warning. Just Dante's fist pounding on the bedroom door, voice sharp with urgency, cutting through sleep like a blade. We're moving. Now, 30 seconds. Ilya is already awake when Rhett bursts into the room. Has been awake for hours, watching shadows shift across unfamiliar walls, counting kicks from the life growing inside him. 29 weeks now. 2 pounds heavier. Survival odds climbing with every passing day. But survival only matters if he lives long enough to deliver. What happened? Ilya sits up too fast. Dizziness floods his vision. Rhett catches his arm before he tips sideways. Perimeter breach. 2 vehicles. No headlights. Rhett's already packing. Clothes shoved into a duffel. Medication swept from the nightstand into a bag Dr. Amari keeps ready. Tariq counted 6 heat signatures. Military movement patterns. Cade found us again. Or Volkov decided negotiation wasn't worth the effort. Rhett pulls him to his feet. Either way, we're not waiting to find out. They move through the house like ghosts. Malik at point, weapon drawn, checking corners with practiced precision. Dr. Amari follows with medical supplies, face grim but steady. Dante brings up the rear, eyes scanning windows for muzzle flash, for movement. For the moment, this evacuation turns into combat. The garage door opens silently. 2 SUVs wait, engines already running, exhaust ghosting white in frozen air. Rhett guides Ilya into the back seat of the first vehicle, climbs in beside him, and Malik hits the accelerator before the door fully closes. They take back roads, no highways, no traffic cameras. Just narrow lanes through state forests, where trees close overhead like a tunnel, and the world narrows to headlights carving through darkness. Ilya watches the speedometer climb, 60, 70, 80 miles per hour on roads designed for 40. His hands grip the armrest. The baby kicks, sensing his fear, responding to adrenaline flooding his system. Where are we going? His voice sounds small even to his own ears. Maryland. Rhett doesn't look away from the window, eyes tracking the tree line for pursuit. Estate owned by a cousin, off the books, no paper trail. How long until they find that one too? Rhett finally turns, meets his gaze in the darkness. I don't know. The honesty is worse than a lie would be. At least lies provide temporary comfort. Truth just confirms what Ilya already knows. They're losing. Every move brings Cade closer. Every safe house becomes a trap. Every day that passes is borrowed time with interest accumulating. They drive for 90 minutes, cross state lines without slowing. The Maryland estate emerges from darkness like a fortress. Stone walls, iron gates, security that predates digital surveillance. Old money architecture, the kind built to withstand sieges. Inside, the house is cold, unused, furniture covered in sheets that turn every surface into a ghost. Dr. Amari disappears into a bedroom to set up monitoring equipment. Malik and Tariq secure the perimeter. And Rhett stands in the foyer, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and dangerous. I don't care what it costs. I want every camera between here and Pennsylvania scrubbed, every traffic feed, every gas station. Make it look like we've vanished into thin air. He ends the call, runs a hand over his face. For the first time since Ilya met him, Rhett looks tired. Not physically. Deeper than that. The exhaustion of a man watching control slip through his fingers, despite every calculated move. Ilya walks closer. Stops just outside arm's reach. This isn't sustainable. I know. We can't keep running forever. I know that too. Then what's the plan? Ilya's voice rises despite efforts to keep it level. Keep relocating until I go into labor in the back of an SUV, until Cade's men finally catch up and... He can't finish. Won't give voice to the nightmare that loops endlessly through his mind. Rhett turns, really looks at him. The plan is to eliminate the threat before that happens. You've been trying that for 2 weeks. It's not working. Because I've been playing defense. Something shifts in Rhett's expression. Hardens. That changes tomorrow. What happens tomorrow? I meet with Volkov, face to face, and I offer him something worth more than your baby. Ilya's stomach drops. What could possibly be worth more? Bram Cade's entire operation, warehouses, accounts, territory, everything. Rhett's jaw tightens. Volkov takes over Cade's business, recoups his investment 10 times over, and in exchange, he cancels the contract and forgets you exist. The proposition hangs in the air between them. Logical, strategic, impossible. Cade will never agree to that, Ilya says quietly. Cade doesn't get a vote. Rhett's smile is cold, sharp. By the time Volkov and I finish talking, Cade won't have anything left to bargain with. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to dismantle him, piece by piece, until there's nothing left but debt and regret. Ilya should feel relief, should feel vindication. Instead, he feels hollow, because he understands now what Rhett is offering. Not just protection, but annihilation. Total war disguised as business negotiation. And once that starts, there's no containing the damage. People will die, Ilya whispers. Bad people, people who traffic omegas, people who sell children. Rhett steps closer. People who deserve exactly what's coming. And if Volkov says no, if he decides your offer isn't good enough, Rhett's expression doesn't change. Then I make it personal. And personal is where I excel. Upstairs, Dr. Amari calls out that the monitoring equipment is ready. Ilya should go. Should let the doctor check vitals, confirm the baby is handling stress as well as possible. But his feet won't move. He's rooted in place, staring at the man who has turned his existence into a chessboard where every piece is in motion and none of them are pawns. Why are you doing this? The question escapes before Ilya can stop it. Really, not the diplomatic answer. The truth. Rhett is silent for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is softer than Ilya has ever heard it. Because I looked at you in the snow, and I saw someone worth saving. And I don't get that feeling often enough to ignore it when I do. The words land like a confession. Ilya's breath catches. He wants to argue, wants to insist he's not worth this level of risk. But the baby kicks again, strong, insistent, and the argument dies unspoken. Don't make promises you can't keep, Ilya says instead. I never do. They stand in silence. Outside, dawn begins to break. Gray light seeps through curtained windows, illuminating a house that feels less like sanctuary and more like a waiting room. Somewhere in the distance, Cade is regrouping. Volkov is calculating. And the clock keeps ticking toward a delivery date that could mean freedom or catastrophe, depending on which threat reaches them first. At this point, success would no longer look like success. The contractions start during breakfast. Not labor, not yet. Just Braxton Hicks. Practice contractions, Dr. Amari explains with professional calm that doesn't quite mask concern. The Omega's body preparing for something it might need to do prematurely if stress levels don't decrease. 30 weeks now. Lungs developing but not fully formed. Survival possible but complicated. Every day matters. Every hour counts. Ilya sits on the edge of the examination table, monitoring belts strapped across his swollen belly, watching numbers climb and fall on screens he doesn't fully understand. Heart rate, contraction frequency, fetal movement, all within normal ranges, all screaming danger. You need to rest, Dr. Amari says for the third time in an hour. Real rest, not survival mode disguised as sleep. Rest won't stop Cade from finding us. No, but it might keep you from going into labor before your body is ready. The doctor's tone softens. Stress hormones cross the placental barrier. Everything you feel, the baby feels. Right now, he's drowning in cortisol. Guilt crashes through Ilya's chest. He presses both hands against his belly. I'm sorry, he whispers to the life inside him. I'm so sorry. Dr. Amari removes the monitoring belt. Helps Ilya sit up. You're doing everything you can. That's all anyone can ask. But it's not enough. It's never enough. Because doing everything right still means running, still means hiding, still means counting down to a birth that could happen in a hospital or a car or a basement, while men with guns decide his son's future. Downstairs, voices rise. Sharp, urgent. Ilya recognizes Rhett's tone even through closed doors. Controlled anger, the kind that sounds calm until you realize it's not calm at all, just rage compressed into syllables. He moves to the door, presses his ear against wood. Don't care what he wants. The meeting happens on my terms, or it doesn't happen. Rhett's voice. Neutral location, public. Witnesses. Another voice responds. Unfamiliar. Accented. Mr. Volkov does not negotiate in diners and coffee shops. He requires privacy. Then he requires disappointment, because I'm not walking into a secondary location where his men outnumber mine. Silence. Then, I will relay your position. The conversation ends. Footsteps approach the stairs. Ilya moves away from the door, but not fast enough. Rhett enters the room and stops when he sees him standing there, guilt written across features too exhausted to hide it. You heard. Not a question. Enough. Ilya crosses his arms. Defensive. Volkov's people don't want a public meeting. Of course they don't. Public means cameras, witnesses, accountability. Rhett loosens his tie. They want me alone and vulnerable. Standard intimidation tactic. So you're not going. I didn't say that. Ilya's stomach clenches. You're walking into a trap. I'm walking into a negotiation with contingencies. Rhett sits on the armchair near the window. Dante will have 3 teams positioned within a 2-block radius. Malik will wire the location with surveillance, and Tariq will be close enough to respond if things deteriorate. That's not contingencies. That's hoping you don't die. Ilya's voice cracks. What happens to me if you do? What happens to this baby? Rhett meets his eyes. You'll be protected. I've made arrangements. Legal documents. Financial trusts. If something happens to me, you and your son are taken care of. I don't want your money. I want you to not get killed trying to save me. The words hang in the air. Honest. Raw. Ilya regrets them immediately because they reveal too much. That somewhere between snow and safe houses, between terror and trust, he started to care whether Rhett Calderon lives or dies. And caring is dangerous. Caring is attachment. Caring is the thing that breaks you when everything falls apart. Rhett stands, crosses the room, stops close enough that Ilya can see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the exhaustion he carries like armor. I'm not going to die, Rhett says quietly. Not tomorrow. Not before I fix this. You can't promise that. No. But I can promise I'll do everything in my power to make it true. He reaches out slowly, gives Ilya time to pull away. When he doesn't, Rhett's hand settles on his shoulder. Warm. Steady. You're not alone in this anymore. I need you to believe that. Ilya wants to. God, he wants to. But belief requires faith, and faith died the first time Bram locked the door and told him struggling only made things worse. I don't know how to believe in people anymore, Ilya admits. Then just believe in this moment. Right now. Today. Tomorrow can wait. The baby kicks, hard enough that Rhett must feel it through Ilya's shirt. His eyes widen slightly. Wonder flickers across his face, brief, unguarded, before control reasserts itself. He's strong, Rhett says. He has to be. Ilya's hands cover Rhett's where it rests against his belly. Because I don't know if I am. You walked through a blizzard barefoot and pregnant because you refused to give up. You're stronger than you think. Ilya laughs. The sound is broken. Or more desperate. Desperation and strength aren't opposites. Sometimes they're the same thing wearing different names. They stand like that for a moment too long to be casual. Ilya feels something shift between them, something unnamed, something dangerous, something that feels too much like hope. Then Dr. Amari knocks on the doorframe, breaking the spell, and reality floods back in. Vitals check, the doctor says. Then rest, doctor's orders. Rhett steps back, professional distance reasserting itself. I'll be downstairs if you need anything. He leaves. The door clicks shut. Dr. Amari gives Ilya a look that suggests she saw more than she's willing to discuss, but she says nothing. just straps the monitoring belt back in place and watches numbers climb and fall while Ilya stares at the ceiling and wonders what happens when the person protecting you becomes the person you can't afford to lose. Downstairs, Rhett's phone rings. The conversation is brief, tense. When it ends, Malik appears in the doorway, expression grim. Volkov agreed to the public meeting. Tomorrow, noon, location of your choice. And the catch? He wants proof Ilya still has the baby. Medical confirmation. Recent ultrasound. Rhett's hands curl into fists. Absolutely not. He said no proof, no meeting. Those are his terms. The room goes silent. Then Rhett stands, walks to the window, and stares out at grounds blanketed in snow that looks too clean, too pure for the ugliness contaminating every corner of this situation. Tell him we'll provide medical documentation, Rhett says finally. But no photos, no identifying information. Gestational age and health status only. Malik nods, leaves to relay the message. And Rhett stays at the window, watching winter erase the landscape, wondering how many more compromises he can make before compromise turns into surrender. Upstairs, Ilya's body contracts again. Tightens, releases, not labor, not yet, just warning. Just the biological reality that stress kills in ways bullets never could, which created a new problem no one knew how to solve. The arrest happens 3 days before the meeting. Not Cade, Rhett, federal agents at dawn, warrants signed by judges whose names appear on campaign contribution lists, funded by people Rhett has spent years either negotiating with or quietly destroying. The charges are creative: racketeering, money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, designed to remove him from the board without requiring actual evidence. Just accusations wrapped in legal language and timing too precise to be coincidental. Ilya watches from the second-floor window as Rhett is led out in handcuffs. No resistance, no protest. Just calm compliance that looks like surrender, but reads like strategy to anyone who knows him. The federal vehicle pulls away. Dante and Malik stand in the driveway, phones already in hand, lawyers already being summoned. And Ilya is alone. Not literally. Dr. Amari is still here. Tariq maintains perimeter security. But the presence that's been between him and danger for 3 weeks is gone, and the absence feels like freefall. It's a setup, Dante says when he comes inside. Snow dusts his shoulders. Anger tightens his jaw. Someone tipped the feds. Timing is too clean. Cade? Ilya's voice sounds distant to his own ears. Or Volkov. Or someone we haven't identified yet. Dante runs a hand over his face. Point is, Rhett's off the board. Meeting with Volkov is canceled. And you need to disappear. Permanently. What? We move you west, California, new identity, medical care under a false name. You deliver, recover, and vanish into suburban anonymity. Dante pulls out a tablet. Shows Ilya documents already prepared. Birth certificate templates. Social security applications. A life built on fiction. It's not ideal, but it's survival. Ilya stares at the screen. At the name that isn't his. At the future that erases everything he's been through, as if suffering can be cleansed by paperwork. What about Rhett? The question escapes before logic can stop it. Rhett has lawyers, resources. He'll fight the charges and probably win. Dante's tone is matter of fact. But that takes months. You don't have months. You have weeks. Maybe days if stress triggers early labor. The baby kicks. Ilya's hand moves to his belly automatically. Protective. Possessive. I'm not running again. Ilya, I spent 6 weeks running. It didn't work. It won't work now. He meets Dante's eyes. Cade will find me in California same as he found me here. And then I'll be alone. No Rhett. No protection. Just me and a newborn against men who've already decided we're disposable. So what's your alternative? Stay here and wait for Cade to kick down the door? Ilya's jaw tightens. I meet with Volkov myself. The room goes silent. Dr. Amari looks up from her equipment. Tariq stops mid-stride in the hallway. Dante stares like Ilya just suggested jumping off a bridge. Absolutely not, Dante says finally. Why? Because I'm an Omega? Because I'm pregnant? Because I'm supposed to let men make decisions about my life while I hide upstairs? Ilya's voice rises. Volkov wants proof the baby exists. Fine, I'll give him proof. And I'll negotiate directly. You have nothing to negotiate with. I have everything. Ilya straightens despite exhaustion, despite fear, despite every logical reason to accept Dante's plan and vanish. I have the one thing Volkov paid for and can't get anywhere else. That's leverage. That's suicide. It's the only move left. They argue for an hour. Dante brings up risk. Ilya counters with reality. Dr. Amari warns about stress-induced labor. Ilya points out that running induces just as much stress. Round and round, logic chasing emotion, until finally Dante throws up his hands. Fine, but I'm coming with you, armed, and at the first sign of danger, we abort. Ilya nods. It's not agreement, it's acknowledgement. Because once he walks into that meeting, aborting won't be an option. Volkov will either accept his terms or he won't. Either way, the running stops. One way or another, this ends. The meeting is set for the next day. Neutral location, a hotel restaurant in downtown Philadelphia. Public, crowded. The kind of place where violence draws attention. And attention is the last thing criminals want. Dante makes the arrangements. Tariq scouts the location. Dr. Amari insists on medical monitoring up until the moment they leave. Ilya barely sleeps. When he does, nightmares loop endlessly. Cade's face, Volkov's cold eyes, the sound of his son crying in a room Ilya can't reach. He wakes at 4 a.m. drenched in sweat, hands pressed against his belly, as if physical contact can shield the life inside him from what's coming. At 11 a.m. they drive to Philadelphia. The restaurant is exactly as described. Upscale, busy, filled with business lunches and quiet conversations that mask desperation with etiquette. Dante secures a corner booth. Ilya slides into the seat, back to the wall, exit routes memorized. Volkov arrives at noon exactly. He's smaller than Ilya expected. 50-something gray hair, tailored suit that costs more than most cars. He moves with the confidence of someone who has never been told no and survived everyone who tried. 2 bodyguards flank him, large, silent, hands hidden inside suit jackets. Volkov sits across from Ilya, studies him with eyes that calculate value the way jewelers assess diamonds. You are not Rhett Calderon, Volkov says. Accent thick, Russian, precise. No, I'm the person you bought. Ilya keeps his voice steady. The merchandise, the product, the thing Bram Cade sold before it existed. Volkov's expression doesn't change. You are also late. Contract specified delivery 8 weeks from payment. That deadline passed 3 days ago. Then you're entitled to a refund. Take it up with Cade. I did. He is currently unavailable. Legal troubles. Volkov's smile is thin. Which makes you my only recourse. I'm not your anything. I'm not Cade's. I'm not Rhett's. And I'm definitely not yours. Ilya leans forward despite Dante's warning hand on his shoulder. But I am willing to make a deal. What deal could you possibly offer? I disappear, completely. You tell Cade the merchandise was damaged in transit. You tell your reputation that the deal fell through due to seller incompetence, not buyer weakness. And you walk away with your investment lost, but you're standing intact. Volkov considers this. And what do I receive in exchange for this generosity? You don't make an enemy of Rhett Calderon. Because if you come after me or this baby, he'll dismantle you piece by piece. Not quickly, slowly, until there's nothing left but debt and memory. The threat hangs in the air. Volkov's bodyguards tense. Dante's hand moves toward his weapon. The restaurant continues its oblivious lunch service, unaware that violence is calculating odds 3 tables from the kitchen. Then Volkov laughs. It's not a kind sound, but it's genuine. You have courage, Volkov says. Stupid courage, but courage nonetheless. He leans back. However, courage does not repay $500,000 investments. Neither does starting a war with the Calderon organization. True, but war can be profitable if you win. Volkov's expression hardens. Here is my counteroffer. You deliver the child. I take custody. You receive $50,000 and a guarantee of safety from Cade. Everyone wins, except me and my son. Sentiment is expensive. Survival is practical. Ilya's hands shake. He presses them flat against the table. No. No? No deal. No negotiation. No transaction. Ilya stands. Too fast. Dizziness washes through him, but he forces it down. I'd rather die than hand my child to you. Volkov's smile vanishes. That can be arranged. Then arrange it, right here, right now, in front of 50 witnesses and a dozen cameras. Ilya's voice rises. See how profitable war becomes when it starts with infanticide in a public restaurant. Silence. The entire restaurant has gone quiet. Phones are out, recording, watching, the viral moment forming in real time. Volkov stands slowly, buttons his suit jacket. You are protected by stupidity and circumstance. Both are temporary. He nods to his bodyguards. But today, you are lucky. He walks out. Just like that. No violence, no threats. Just the cold calculation that today's battle isn't worth tomorrow's complications. Dante pulls Ilya toward the exit. They reach the car, pull away from the curb, and Ilya collapses in the back seat, shaking so hard his teeth chatter. You just made an enemy of the Detroit Bratva, Dante says. I know. Rhett is going to lose his mind when he finds out. I know that too. They drive back to Maryland in silence. When they arrive, Dr. Amari is waiting, takes one look at Ilya and ushers him upstairs for monitoring. Heart rate elevated, blood pressure concerning, contractions irregular but present. You need to rest, Dr. Amari says, before your body decides it's done waiting. But rest doesn't come, because 2 hours later Malik appears in the doorway with news that changes everything. Rhett's out, charges dropped. Federal prosecutor admitted evidence was manufactured. He's on his way here now. Relief floods through Ilya, then fear. Because Rhett will know what he did. Will know he met with Volkov alone. Will know he rejected safety in favor of defiance. And Ilya has no idea if that makes him brave or suicidal. That solution failed for a reason no one had measured yet. Rhett arrives like a storm. Not loud, not violent, just absolute. He walks through the front door at midnight, still wearing the clothes he was arrested in, exhaustion and rage carved into every line of his face. Dante meets him in the foyer. The conversation is brief, hushed. Then Rhett's gaze lifts to the second floor, to the bedroom where Ilya sits awake, waiting. The stairs creak under his weight. The door opens without knocking. Rhett stands in the threshold, backlit by hallway light, and the silence stretches until it feels like suffocation. You met with Volkov. Not a question, an accusation wrapped in disappointment. Yes. Ilya doesn't look away. Won't apologize. Someone had to. Someone had to risk your life and your baby's life to prove a point? Someone had to stop being a victim. Ilya's hands curl into fists. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being protected like I'm fragile. I'm not fragile. I'm terrified. There's a difference. Rhett steps into the room, closes the door behind him. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, more dangerous. Do you have any idea what could have happened? What Volkov could have done if he decided negotiation wasn't worth the effort? He could have killed me, could have taken the baby, could have hurt everyone around me to make a point. Ilya stands, faces him fully. But he didn't, because I gave him something more valuable than compliance. I gave him an out that preserved his reputation. And if he'd said no, then I'd be dead. And you wouldn't have to keep trying to save someone who doesn't want to be saved the way you're saving them. The words spill out before Ilya can stop them. Raw, honest. I'm grateful. God, I'm so grateful you pulled me out of that snow. But gratitude doesn't mean I surrender my choices. Not to you. Not to anyone. Not again. Rhett goes very still. You think I'm trying to control you? I think you're trying to protect me. And sometimes those look the same. The statement lands between them like broken glass. Rhett's jaw tightens. He crosses to the window, stares out at darkness, interrupted only by security lights casting geometric shadows across snow. When he speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper. My father once told me that protection without consent is just imprisonment with better furniture. He turns, meets Ilya's eyes. I swore I'd never become that. Never be the man who cages people for their own good. Then don't be. Ilya takes a step closer. Then another. Until they're close enough to touch. Let me choose. Even if my choice is dangerous. Even if it scares you. It terrifies me. The admission cracks something open in Rhett's carefully constructed armor. Watching you walk into that restaurant, knowing Volkov could end you with a nod. I've faced down hostile takeovers, rival factions, federal investigations. None of it felt like that. Like what? Like losing something I didn't know I needed until it was almost gone. The words hang in the space between them. Ilya's breath catches. The baby kicks, strong, insistent, and Rhett's gaze drops to where Ilya's hand rests against his belly. Can I? Rhett asks quietly. Ilya nods. Can't speak. Rhett's hand settles over his, palm warm against fabric, and for a moment neither of them moves. Just breathes, just exists in a pocket of stillness carved from chaos. I need to tell you something, Rhett says, and you're not going to like it. That seems to be our pattern. Volkov called me an hour ago. He's withdrawing his claim, officially. Says the deal is void due to seller fraud. Relief crashes through Ilya so hard his knees weaken. That's good. That's what we wanted. It's not over. Rhett's hand tightens slightly. Cade knows he lost his buyer, which means the baby has no value to him anymore. And people Cade can't profit from, he eliminates. The relief evaporates. So he'll come for us anyway. He'll come for you. To erase the evidence, to tie up loose ends. Rhett's voice drops. Which is why I'm offering you something I've never offered anyone. What? A mark, permanent, legal, recognized across state lines and organizational boundaries. Rhett's eyes search his face. If you're marked as mine, Cade can't touch you without starting a war he can't win. Neither can anyone else. You and your son become untouchable. Ilya pulls back. You want to mark me. I want to protect you. The mark is the mechanism. The mark is ownership. No. Rhett's response is immediate, firm. The mark is a declaration. It says you're under my protection. But it doesn't say you're under my control. You keep your autonomy, your choices, your freedom. It's a shield, not a cage. Rhett, I know what I'm asking. I know what marks have meant to you, what they've been used for. Rhett's voice softens. But I'm not Cade. I'm not anyone who's hurt you. And this, he gestures between them. This is choice, your choice. Say no and we find another way. Say yes and I swear on everything I have that I will never use it to harm you. Ilya's throat closes. He wants to say no. Wants to reject the idea of being marked again, of wearing someone's claim like a brand. But he also wants his son to survive. Wants to stop running. Wants to believe that maybe, just maybe, this mark could mean something different. I need time, he whispers. I'll give you all the time in the world. But Ilya, Rhett cups his face gently. Cade won't. So decide quickly. The next 3 days pass in slow motion. Ilya watches Dr. Amari monitor contractions that come and go like false alarms. Watches Dante and the twins fortify defenses. Watches Rhett orchestrate a systematic dismantling of Cade's operation. Accounts frozen, warehouses raided, allies turned, until Cade is isolated and desperate. On the 4th day, Ilya's water breaks. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Just a warm rush that soaks through his clothes at 2 in the afternoon while he's reading in bed. He stares at the wetness spreading across sheets. Feels the first real contraction grip his abdomen like a vice. 32 weeks, viable, but premature. Dr. Amari, his voice cracks. Panic floods in. Amari, she's there in seconds. Assesses, confirms. We need to get you to a hospital. Now. No hospitals. Ilya grabs her wrist. Cade has people in hospitals. He'll find me. You're in labor. I can monitor. I can assist. But if complications develop, Then we handle them here. Rhett appears in the doorway. No question, no debate. Set up the medical suite. Call in specialists if you need them. But he doesn't leave this house until Kate is neutralized. The next 8 hours are agony. Contractions that tear through him like knives. Pain medication that barely touches the edge of suffering. Dr. Amari's voice, calm and steady, guiding him through breathing techniques that feel useless against biology, determined to expel new life regardless of readiness. And Rhett, always there, hand gripping his, voice low and grounding, presence solid when everything else fragments. I need to decide, Ilya gasps between contractions. The mark, I need to, not now, focus on breathing. No, now, before, another contraction, worse than the others. Before he's born and I lose the chance. Rhett leans close. You're sure? No. But I'm choosing anyway. Ilya meets his eyes. Mark me. Make it official. Keep him safe. The mark happens quickly, traditional. A bite to the junction of neck and shoulder. Brief, painful. Then warmth floods through Ilya's system. Biological, chemical, the bonding that overwrites fear with belonging. It doesn't erase the pain of labor, but it steadies something fundamental. 3 hours later at 11:47 p.m., Ilya's son is born. Small, premature, but breathing, crying alive. Dr. Amari places him on Ilya's chest, skin to skin. The baby's eyes flutter open, pale, unfocused, and Ilya's world narrows to this single point of existence. Everything he's survived, everything he's endured, condensed into 5 pounds of new life. He's perfect, Ilya whispers. Rhett stands beside the bed, staring at the child with an expression Ilya has never seen. Wonder mixed with terror mixed with something that looks like love. What's his name? Rhett asks quietly. Ilya hasn't thought about it. Hasn't let himself hope far enough ahead to consider naming someone who might not survive. But looking at his son now, the answer surfaces. Elijah. It means, my God is Yahweh. Strength through faith. Elijah. Rhett tests the name, nods. It fits. Outside, snow begins to fall. Inside, the world rests in temporary peace. And even then, it only worked if nothing went wrong. The message arrives 6 weeks later. Not through encrypted channels. Not through intermediaries. Just a plain envelope delivered to the Maryland estate by courier who doesn't ask questions and doesn't wait for a response. Inside, a single newspaper clipping. Chicago Tribune. Small article buried on page 9. Local businessman arrested on federal trafficking charges. Bram Cade faces life sentence. Rhett reads it twice. Sets it on his desk. The corners of his mouth don't lift into a smile. Satisfaction for him looks like stillness. Like the quiet after a storm when damage is assessed and survival is confirmed. Upstairs, Ilya sits in the nursery. Elijah cradled against his chest. 6 weeks old now, healthy, growing. The premature birth complications that terrified them have faded into manageable routines. Feeding schedules, weight checks, developmental milestones tracked with precision, Dr. Amari insists is excessive, but Ilya can't abandon. The mark on his neck has healed into a silvery scar. Visible. Undeniable. When people see it, they know what it means. Protection. Claim. The physical evidence that Ilya belongs to someone powerful enough to make threats evaporate. But the mark has become something else too. Something neither of them expected. Partnership. Rhett appears in the nursery doorway. Silent. Watching. He does this often, observes without speaking, as if confirming reality through repetition. Ilya has learned to read the variations in his silence. This one is content. Cade's arrested, Rhett says quietly. Federal charges. Evidence airtight. He'll die in prison. Ilya should feel relief. Should feel vindication. Instead, he feels hollow. How many others did he hurt before you stopped him? Too many, but no more. That's what matters now. Elijah stirs in Ilya's arms. Makes small sounds that aren't quite crying but demand attention nonetheless. Ilya adjusts his hold. And Rhett crosses the room without asking. reaching out to stroke one finger across the baby's downy head. He's gotten bigger, Rhett observes. 5 ounces this week. Dr. Amari says he's catching up to full-term babies rapidly. Good. Rhett's voice carries weight that has nothing to do with medical statistics. He's strong, like his father. The words settle between them. Ilya has never corrected Rhett's occasional slips, moments where he refers to Elijah as if shared biology creates shared parenthood. The truth is more complicated. The mark makes Rhett legally responsible, socially recognized. But the emotional architecture of fatherhood is still under construction. I've been thinking, Ilya says carefully, about what comes next. Next? We can't hide here forever. Elijah needs a life, socialization, eventually school. Normal things. Ilya looks up, meets Rhett's eyes. What does normal look like for us? Rhett considers this. There's a property in Northern California. Coastal, quiet. Far enough from Chicago and Detroit that old ghosts stay buried. We could relocate, establish residency, build something permanent. We? If you want. Rhett's expression is carefully neutral. The mark makes you family. But family can live separately if that's your preference. Ilya's chest tightens. He spent 6 weeks in proximity to Rhett. Shared meals, shared space, shared responsibility for a child neither of them planned. And somewhere in the routine, something shifted. Trust built from repetition. Affection growing in spaces where fear used to live. I don't want separate, Ilya admits. I don't know what I want. But not that. Rhett's hand settles on his shoulder. Warm, grounding. Then we figure it out together. 3 months later, they move to California, a house on cliffs overlooking the Pacific. Modern architecture. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Space designed for living rather than hiding. Dante and the twins visit quarterly. Dr. Amari relocates her practice nearby. And slowly, impossibly, life becomes something other than survival. Ilya establishes a foundation. Small at first. Resources for displaced omegas, legal aid, medical care, housing assistance, funded through anonymous donations that Rhett never acknowledges but clearly facilitates. The work is quiet, unglamorous, but it saves lives. Rhett scales back his involvement in the organization, keeps strategic oversight, delegates daily operations, spends mornings working from home and afternoons walking beaches with Elijah strapped to his chest in a carrier that costs too much and serves its purpose perfectly. They don't call it a relationship, don't label what they've become. But when Rhett reaches for Ilya's hand during evening walks, when they coordinate bedtime routines with practiced efficiency, when they collapse on the sofa after particularly difficult nights, it feels like more than protection. It feels like home. On Elijah's first birthday, they host a small gathering. Dante brings wine. The twins bring gifts wrapped in paper Elijah immediately shreds with delighted chaos. Dr. Amari brings medical records that confirm developmental milestones exceeded expectations. And Rhett brings a leather-bound journal. What's this? Ilya opens the cover. Inside, handwriting he recognizes as Rhett's fills page after page. Everything that happened. From the night I found you until now. For him. Rhett nods toward Elijah, currently destroying wrapping paper with single-minded determination. So when he's old enough to ask questions, he has answers. Real ones. Not sanitized versions. Ilya's throat closes. He flips through pages. Sees his own story reflected in Rhett's precise handwriting. The snow. The fear. The running. But also the survival. The choices. The moments where terror transformed into agency. You wrote about the mark, Ilya observes. I wrote the truth. That it started as protection and became something else. Something neither of us planned but both of us chose. Rhett's gaze is steady. He deserves to know his origins aren't defined by violence. They're defined by what came after. Ilya closes the journal. Sets it aside. Pulls Rhett close enough to rest his forehead against his shoulder. Thank you. For what? For not making me small. For not treating survival like my only option. Ilya pulls back, meets his eyes. For showing me that protection and freedom can coexist if the right person is offering both. Rhett's hand cups his face. Gentle, reverent. You taught me something too. What? That power means nothing without restraint. And restraint means nothing without something worth protecting. They kiss, soft, unhurried. The kind of intimacy that builds from trust rather than passion. When they pull apart, Elijah has abandoned wrapping paper in favor of attempting to eat a ribbon. Dante rescues it before damage occurs. The twins laugh. Dr. Amari takes photos no one asked for but everyone will treasure. And in that moment, Ilya understands something fundamental. The mark didn't save him. Rhett didn't save him. He saved himself by choosing to believe safety was possible when every experience taught otherwise. The mark was just the mechanism. The protection was just the framework. The real transformation happened internally. The moment Ilya decided he was worth fighting for. 3 years later, Ilya stands in a courtroom, not as defendant, as witness, testifying against the remnants of Cade's organization. Others have come forward now. Other Omegas who survived. Other stories that need telling. The trial is public. The verdict is inevitable. When it ends, guilty on all counts, Ilya walks out of the courthouse into California sunshine, where Rhett waits with Elijah, now 4 years old, chattering about dinosaurs and ocean tides with the unfiltered enthusiasm of a child who has never known fear. All done? Rhett asks. All done. Ilya scoops Elijah into his arms. Ready to go home? Home. The word used to feel foreign, dangerous. A concept for people whose lives weren't measured in survival increments. But now it means something solid, real. The house on the cliffs. The foundation helping others. The family built from choice rather than biology. They drive north, windows down, ocean air carrying salt and possibility. Elijah falls asleep in his car seat. Rhett's hand finds Ilya's across the console. And for the first time in years, Ilya doesn't scan the horizon for threats. Doesn't calculate escape routes. Just exists in the moment. That night, after Elijah is asleep and the house is quiet, Ilya and Rhett sit on the deck watching waves crash against rocks below. The mark on Ilya's neck catches moonlight. A reminder. A choice. A promise kept. Do you ever regret it? Rhett asks quietly. The mark. What it represents. Ilya considers this. I regret what it took to get here. But not where we ended up. Even though it started in survival? Especially because of that. Survival taught me strength. What came after taught me how to use it. They sit in silence. Eventually, Rhett speaks again. I'm going to ask you something, and you can say no. Okay. I want to adopt Elijah, legally, make it official beyond the mark. Rhett's voice is careful. Not to take him from you, but to stand beside you as his parent. Equally. Permanently. Ilya's breath catches. He's thought about this. Wondered when Rhett would ask. Whether he would ask. What the answer should be. Yes, Ilya says simply. Yes, I want that. Rhett's hand tightens around his. Thank you. For what? For letting me be part of this. For trusting me when trust should have been impossible. You earned it. Every day, every choice. Ilya leans against him. We both did. The adoption finalizes 6 months later. Quiet ceremony. Dante and the twins as witnesses. Dr. Amari officiating because she's the closest thing to clergy any of them trust. And when the judge declares it final, Elijah officially has 2 fathers who chose him, rather than one who claimed him by biology. The years that follow are ordinary in the best possible way. School plays, soccer practices, beach vacations where Elijah collects shells and builds sandcastles, while Rhett and Ilya watch from blankets spread on sun-warmed sand. The foundation grows. The organization continues under new leadership that honors old codes. And the house on the cliffs becomes a place where former survivors find temporary refuge while rebuilding their lives. Most people never know the full story. Never know what it took to build this particular version of normal. And that's exactly the point. Because the real legacy isn't the drama, isn't the rescue, isn't even the mark. It's the quiet truth that safety can be rebuilt after it's shattered. That family can be chosen rather than assigned. That survival isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning. And as Ilya watches Elijah grow, confident, loved, free from the ghosts that haunted his origins, he understands something his younger self could never have believed. Most people will never know this exists, and that's exactly why it works. Thank you for following this journey from snow-covered desperation to sun-warmed hope. If this story moved you, inspired you, or gave you strength, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next chapter. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And remember, survival is where the story begins, but it's not where it ends. Keep fighting, keep choosing, keep believing that better exists just beyond the fear. See you in the next story. Until then, stay strong.